Hello everyone, this is Anna from Tuesday. And today the live video is about how to work with narcissistic people. First of all, you want to make sure that you identify them correctly. I'm just going to straighten this up. So, working with narcissists, you've got to make sure that you're able to identify that this person is a narcissist. The number one quality of narcissists is that in their worldview, there is only one person, and that's them. So, whatever they think, imagine, see, understand is the truth. There is no other truth. So, that's number one characteristic, that they are very, very clued into their own worldview as being the right worldview. Any argument with a narcissist will is doomed to failure because you cannot convince them, you cannot prove anything to them, you cannot show them facts, you cannot provide a model that in any way challenges their reality. Um, if you try doing something like this, they will make you their enemy, and they will discredit you, and they will make you into somebody who they completely reject or remove from their life. Now, people with a high need for power often have strong narcissistic traits, but they are not identified usually as having narcissistic personality disorder. It's considered a disorder if the narcissism is at the point that it is completely detrimental to relationships that they have with the rest of the world. So, the most important thing to understand about people with narcissistic traits is that they do not really care about anyone else's point of view except their own. So, that's the number one thing that you've got to remember. So if you happen to be in a relationship with someone, usually ends up happening is that you occupy less and less space over time. You literally may hold your body in a smaller position. You may not, want to be in the room at the same time as them. You may kind of seek going away in corners. You may sort of really have a really strong need for space. And this could be really unconscious, something that you unconsciously start to do in order to cope effectively with someone with higher narcissism. So they have a very strong need to occupy all the space, take up all the energy, have all the attention in any situation. All eyes must always be on them. Sometimes people with high narcissistic traits can do negative things in order to make sure that they have all the attention. So it's not just that they will stop at, being cool or doing something that gets attention in a positive way. They can even do things that are actually quite harmful, detrimental, negative, insolent. They may attack people um, with criticism or blame in order to make sure that they have all the attention. So they have a very strong need for attention. They have a very sort of fixated worldview. So those are two strong characteristics. Now, if you are working with a narcissistic person, the rules are slightly different than if you are simply in a relationship with a narcissist. So there, your partner is a narcissistic, or a family member is narcissistic. So, working with narcissists is a slightly different situation as compared to being related to one or being in a family with one. So, number one thing for anybody to remember is to ensure that your mental health is kept to such a degree that you can handle the challenge of working with a narcissistic person. So, somebody who is going to be working with a narcissistic boss, for example, they need to make sure their mental health is a priority. They need to make sure that they're doing mindfulness, that they are doing yoga, that they have a therapist in their life, that they have somebody to talk to where they can actually share their true feelings about their job and about what it's like working with their boss. One thing to make sure you and everybody understands is that it's not possible for a lot of people to actually relate to or understand that you have a narcissistic boss and what does it really mean to you. Most people will just give you simple advice like, don't take things personally. Just make sure that you do your work and make sure you put your boundaries. But the problem that most people don't understand with narcissistic people is that you can do all of the above and your stress level can be still higher than if you're working with someone who's just normally controlling or normally type A, a high achiever or somebody who just likes to take credit for themselves. So narcissism is actually in a category all its own. And how is it distinguished from just being with somebody who is just generally loud or generally boisterous or just generally takes up a lot of space? The difference is in the nervous system. The impact of a narcissistic person on the nervous system of other people is quite different as compared to someone who's just ordinarily or just generally a little, rude or a little selfish. So, a narcissistic person has an extremely agitated nervous system. It's dysregulated. So what that means is people high in narcissistic traits have great difficulty calming themselves down. They just cannot calm themselves down. And so they absolutely need somebody to rage at, something to fight, some story, some drama in their life to actually cope. They need that to cope. So they have a very dysregulated nervous system. So if you're an empath, if you're any slightly sensitive, or you're not made of wood or iron or a rock, your nervous system is going to be perpetually overstimulated and dysregulated just by being in the energy field of a narcissistic person. It's the microaggressions. It's these little bits of rage in their expression. It's the way they phrase a sentence. It's their body language that can be more attacking. These little microaggressions in the way they speak, in the way they phrase themselves, that will affect someone who is in their company for a long period of time. So if you're working with some people who are narcissistic, your boundaries need to be extremely strong. So, for example, a narcissist will always blame someone else. You're on a team of 4 or 5 people, and there is a narcissistic person in the team. The narcissistic person does not like to take responsibility, um, and a narcissistic person does not like criticism. They may criticize others, they may tell other people to take responsibility, they may somehow wheedle, kind of basically slip out of responsibility. They may put in the least bit of effort. They may make excuses like they're too busy, they don't have the technology, they don't understand. They may use praise as well. So they may say to one person, "Oh, you're so good at this. You really have to do this part in the project." Basically, blame shifting is a big strategy for a narcissistic person, and work shifting as well. But when it comes to taking credit in front of your boss or giving the impression that they've done most of the work, they are very smooth with that. Remember what I'd said earlier about their nervous system being highly alert. And so they are unable to calm down. They're extremely, aware of uh, impressions that they may be creating, and so they can play people in a way that other personality types may not be able to even get at. So they can present things to their bosses in such a way that it shows that they did all the work. They're very good at putting that mask on. And it's just that micro, like micro movement. It's just the way they come across. They'll give you the impression that they spent 5 hours doing something that normally would take someone about half an hour to do, but the way they're going to say it is like they'll show that they're so hardworking and they're so amazingly committed, and that they're always the victim. They're so tired, they're so exhausted. The world is after them. They're somewhat, marginalized in some way. People are, their enemies, and they're still doing such hard work. And there's always a sob story. And so empaths or other people who are more codependent, who like to please others, who like to help others because they like to feel needed, they're going to often fall in the trap of trying to help the narcissist and try to do their work for them, or for very little. Some narcissists may just even just offer them a few words of praise or just a little bit of attention. And people who are more on the empathic and codependent side, I mean, they'll just keep doing that. Something may feel off, they may feel a little more tired, they may feel a little more exhausted in the relationship, but they will not really get it, because if narcissists are very good at telling a sob story where they're the victim, so they're difficult to get called out on. In the workplace, this kind of dynamics is extremely common. And if there is any kind of psychological trained HR person, they would be able to pick up on this kind of a dynamic in a group very quickly. But very few organizations actually invest in this kind of a person who can watch what the dynamic and the energies are between people and what kind of personality types are working together. So we often find that narcissists can really, really play the system. And they can play the system to such an extent that they end up being managers or being bosses, because they can do a fraction of the work but take the 80% of the credit. And that's their amazing quality. And people will just think that, they did such great work and they're so good at what they do. Many times narcissists will keep a sidekick or two, who are their devoted sort of foil, or person who actually does the work, really works for the narcissist, and that's their loyal band. And they pick one or two people who are their sycophants, who are their sidekicks. And those people will be in every project. And because a narcissist feels that these people are loyal to them no matter what. So that's another work strategy for narcissists, is that they'll kind of nurture and feed a couple of people to be their wingmen or wing women. And you can find that dynamic too in many organizations. We can see that in many positions of power, that you'll find that. So, what is it that makes narcissists popular? Like, why is it that people can't see through all of this facade? And why is it that people tolerate it? That's something that you may actually be wondering about, especially if you work in a company where there are narcissists as well, and you're kind of wondering, like, what gives? Like, why is this person who's openly unempathetic, who exploits people, who can be abusive towards women, for example, or people coming from a more marginalized background, or whoever they don't like, and they get away with it. So, what is it really? It's just their energy system. Their energy system kind of freezes people. So, people go into a freeze response. It's literally a hypnotic response. And people cannot talk back to them, cannot, challenge the facts, because they're afraid of the narcissist raging and being angry. A lot of people are very approval seeking in the world. They don't have the high self esteem that the narcissist has. So the narcissist presents this kind of a energy that puts people into a slightly dazed state. It's very hard to challenge a narcissist because they aren't challenged by facts. You can't argue with them. um, that's not what it's about. They're not interested in knowing the truth. So that's another problem when it comes to equalizing power with a narcissistic person, is that they do not believe in facts. You can go blue in the face, proving something or stating something, but a narcissistic person is not going to accept it. They What they will do is they will resort to rage, they will resort to personal attacks, and then if that fails, then they will resort to completely shunning you out. So they're going to have that meeting without you. You're not going to be made part of the group who's working on the kind of project that you wanted to work. So they will punish you in these ways through exclusion, through rejection. In that way, they will assert who's boss, who's got the power. So these are all sort of games that narcissistic people play in the workplace. So, how do you manage to keep yourself sane? Rule number one: never argue with a narcissist. You can try and other things, but arguing with a narcissistic person is not going to be helpful at all. And the best thing that you can do is to uh, avoid any kind of emotional reaction. So do not argue, do not express emotions. If there are facts that are complete, if the narcissist is lying, for example, and if there are facts that you have, then the best thing you can do is to present them at a time when um, when it's when you're alone, basically, with the narcissist, because the narcissist can resort to humiliation very easily, and in the workplace that's not something that you want to get into, because then you could be scapegoated by the narcissist as well. So if you are absolutely sure that the narcissist is lying, which is often the case, um, uh, don't think that the narcissist doesn't know this. The narcissist knows this, that they are lying. They are deliberately lying. So if you go and confront them, that's not going to do anything. That's not going to foil their game. That's not going to make you win their game. That's not going to get them to back off. All it's going to do is to just, you know, make it even more difficult for you to work with them. So don't argue. Um, Notice what the agenda is. What does the narcissistic person really hope to create in that situation? And then give that to them if that's possible. So many times, the agenda of a narcissistic person is to avoid blame and avoid responsibility. That's what they're really after. So look at the objective of what this person is really wanting. They just want a break. They don't want to take responsibility. They don't want to do something. And once you get that that's all it's about, is that they want to avoid um, doing something. They want to get out of some responsibility. And then you have two choices: either to take the responsibility on yourself, or just draw the line there that I cannot do this, not like this, or just put your boundaries down that I will not be able to do this for you. I can do that, the other thing. I won't be able to do the XYZ. By taking your control back, you do two things. You give a sense of what you will do and what you won't do for the narcissist, which is extremely important, and for your self esteem as well. And the second thing that you're going to do is that you will save yourself the energy, time, heartache, and misery of getting into an argument and trying to convince the narcissistic person that you're right and they're wrong based on logic and facts. Because the narcissistic person does not operate on the principle of trying to seek truth, whereas a lot of empathic people and just more rational people may be operating on the principle of what is the truthful, what is the honest, what is the right thing to do. The narcissistic person is not operating on that. The narcissistic person only wants one thing, and that is power. They just want power and control. And if you are smart enough to figure that out and figure out also that they want power and control without the responsibility, then you are able to keep your head up and able to make that relationship function. So that's at the workplace. Now, if you're working with somebody with higher narcissistic traits in the family, or perhaps a partner or a spouse, the same principle really applies, which is that narcissistic people do not and cannot handle responsibility. It stresses them out a lot. It really, really upsets them. And they don't like to take the blame for anything. They don't like to participate in that kind of an equal turf. So the narcissistic person, like I've said earlier, wants to have all the power and the control in the relationship. To them, a relationship is basically a source of attention or supply, as many people in the mental health field will call it, like literally like a tissue or a batch of stationery. It's actually a very, very reductionist word. It's a harsh word to use. It's also self-demeaning, so I don't really like that word supply. But the point of this is that the the area where the narcissistic person really struggles with is actual attachment or actual love for someone. They really, really struggle with that because in their universe, there's only one person, and the other people, the idea that other people have feelings and that those feelings matter, and how to make sure that they're mattering at the same sort of equal playing field is very, very threatening for a narcissistic person. Narcissistic people have to be superior to everybody else. They have to be better than everybody else. They're the smarter people, they're the better people, they know better, they are better. And anything that threatens that worldview is absolutely, it just destroys them. So that's what's very, very difficult for them to be truly loyal in a relationship with anyone. They will be loyal to the extent that they get something out of the relationship. When it comes to the other person's turn to receive something from that relationship, they will be very, very hesitant to provide that. In fact, they will make excuses. They will rage. They will deny. They may even wall off completely. Like they will not talk to you because you're asking them for a payback or for a return of the energy that you have invested in them. That's not something that a narcissistic spouse, partner, parent, sibling would like. They don't like that at all. It's not natural for them. So, how do you kind of manage to have a more equal relationship with them? Well, first of all, forget it. It's never going to be equal. It's always going to be one manipulation after another. So either you play the same game of just giving them the same breadcrumbs that they give you, and kind of distance yourself emotionally from them, sort of keep bringing in that sense of disconnection that anybody who's in a relationship with a narcissistic person feels. They feel that extreme emptiness of the heart, and they feel completely unloved, like emotionally completely unloved. Many people think that that's just a phase that the narcissist is going through. That that person will start loving them or approving of them if they try harder, if they kind of reach the expectations and standards of the narcissistic person. But actually, that's not true. You could go blue in the face trying to change yourself, become a better person, or try to fulfill the standards of the narcissistic person, improve yourself. The person is not going to give you the love that you're craving for. They may have pretended to give you that love when they first started, dating or meeting you, but it's not something that they do. There is only one person, like I said, in the narcissistic person's worldview, and that's them. And that's all that really matters. So, what are some kinds of people that narcissists like? So, it's not as though narcissists don't like other human beings or don't admire them. They do. But let's see the kind of people that a narcissistic person is going to like. The narcissistic person is going to like people who are very physically appealing, have something that the narcissist doesn't have. So many narcissistic men would be going after very perfect, very beautiful, physically beautiful women, for example, because that beauty gives them a sense of worth because they have that, because for them it's having, it's owning, it's controlling, it's that they're getting off on. So if they're with someone, they're not with that person because they're enjoying that person's company. They're with that person as a reflection of themselves. Again, the narcissist only sees themselves. So see this beautiful person as a reflection of them. So therefore, they're going to like that beautiful person. So that's a big sign that somebody is narcissistic, is that they are very drawn to physical perfection. They'll have that kind of person in their cabinet. And if they're in politics, you'll find a lot of narcissistic people in politics. In movies, for example, the entertainment industry has a lot of narcissistic people. And you will find that they pick on a certain type of a person. Now, when is it the narcissistic partners or people who are narcissistic? What kind of when is it that they're drawn to empaths or healer type personalities? Is when they're down on their luck. They're down on their luck, then they need somebody who kind of is sweet to them, is kind to them, will give them the TLC that they've been craving. So they might, for a short while, pick a partner who is not perfect but who's kind and gentle with them and builds them up. So they'll often choose that sort of a partner for a while, and then they are not going to be loyal to that partner unless that partner also happens to meet some of the narcissist's insecurities. So if the narcissist is insecure about their money, then they'll stick with that partner. If the that partner is rich or wealthy or has high social status or has a certain background. So narcissistic people are incredibly selfish in who they marry and why they marry. Social status is one of the key reasons why a narcissistic person may decide to commit to somebody, and the second reason is less responsibility. So, a relationship in which they have to take more responsibility isn't something that the narcissistic person would like. They at all, they really at all costs like to reduce responsibility. So, these are some tips on identifying and working with a narcissist in your workplace and also in your personal relationships. Um, if you do feel that you're with someone who's narcissistic and there's absolutely no way that you can get out of that situation, the one thing you'll have to do for yourself is stop expecting the narcissist to um, level the playing field. The narcissist has a strong need for control and power in the relationship. They will not like to level the playing field in any which way. Secondly, they're not there to love you. They are there to gain something from the relationship. They are not coming into the relationship with the idea that they want to give something to you. They'll only be there as long as they can get something from the relationship. So those are number two, the second most important thing to remember about narcissistic people. And then the third way to protect yourself is to make sure that you put in important boundaries for your sanity and for your physical health. Narcissistic people have very agitated nervous systems. It's very difficult for them to calm down. NPD especially can often be comorbid or occur with um, issues such as depression and anxiety. So the narcissistic person often has high depression and often has high anxiety as well. So it's very draining to be around them. They need a lot of caretaking. The second thing that you need to make sure you do is to make sure that you keep control of your assets. So, narcissistic people like a lot to control everything and have total power over all belongings, all material belongings. They may avoid anything to do that equalizes your status or your control over assets. So be sure to protect your assets, material assets. And then one more thing that can really, really help you is to, listen to videos, join communities, talk to people who can give you some advice on how to stay safe and protected in these relationships. It's very common for people who have gone through narcissistic abuse to have symptoms of PTSD, flashbacks, freeze response, difficulty breathing, insomnia. And these are like a constantly sort of a low level agitated state that people who are living in close proximity or in intimate relationships with narcissistic people. Their partners often do not remain healthy. They could have psychosomatic illnesses. They could have mental health issues themselves. They may be in a constant state of anxiety. They could get generalized anxiety disorder. They could suffer from severe low self esteem. They could do self harm, such as cutting themselves. And they could have develop addiction issues. Narcissistic people will often also have addiction issues. They could have alcohol addiction issues. They could have other addiction issues as well. They could also have a lot of anxiety too. So, narcissistic people are often also very codependent. They do enmesh a lot in their partner, and they are very, very sensitive to the partner's reactions. They may do a lot of mind reading with their partner as well. So they're always kind of, again, not very unsure, very scared actually of losing power over their, codependent partner. And they need that constant reassurance that that codependent partner is really under their control and in their spell. So it's not a healthy relationship by any means, but it's frighteningly common how many relationships can be, codependent in that way. And then to realize that and to fix that can take a while. So it's not an easy fix by any means. Anyway, I wish you luck with these tips on how to work with and how to protect yourself and also how to identify if your partner or somebody you care about or work with is higher on the narcissistic traits. Anyway, thanks for watching. Do let me know how you like this, and post your comments. And if you have questions from me, let me know. Bye now.